You want to know which running backs are set to go off and help you win your Week 5 matchup for fantasy football? Stick around and we'll give you our picks. Welcome back, Endgame community. I'm Pierre, he's Chris. We're going to give you our favorite boom picks at the running back position for Week 5. So Chris, let's kick things off. Who you got?
You know, there's been a lot of busts at both positions, really, but especially at the running back position. And one of the biggest busts this year has been Dalvin Cook. Has yet to even score 14 PPR fantasy points this year, not living up to the guy you drafted, the guy you thought was a set and forget every week RB1. And you know what? The worst part is last week, coming off the injury, ends up being healthy, ends up playing the whole game, but what happens? You have to watch Alexander Mattison take a 20-yard screen to the house early in the morning on your Sunday. This is a terrible way to start your day. But don't worry, it's going to get better here in Week 5. Because he gets the Bears. The Bears are a terrible defense against the pass and against the run. Dalvin Cook, to me, going over 100 yards, has a great chance to find the end zone in this game. And the other nice thing about playing the Bears is their offense doesn't really put together long, sustained drives. They give the ball right back to the other team very quickly. So there should be a lot of snaps for the Vikings, a lot of chances to score, a lot of opportunities for Dalvin Cook. I know it's been rough the first 4 weeks, but it gets better in Week 5. He's in a great spot to absolutely smash this week. I think he does. I think he delivers, a huge top 10, maybe even a top 5 rushing week this week in fantasy. So start Dalvin Cook with confidence.
Yeah, look, the Bears aren't stopping many people these days. We saw how Aaron Jones tore them apart. And their offense is giving a lot of opportunity to the other team because they just don't score either. So I'm definitely with you on that pick. So, Cook's been kind of a disappointment. Let me talk about probably the most pleasant surprise of the season at the running back position. That's James Robinson, a guy who in some leagues wasn't even drafted. We had no idea what to expect from him coming off that torn Achilles. Well, what we have now is a solid every week RB2. Now, the thing is, he's coming off his worst game, really his first bad game of the season. Only 29 yards on 8 carries, and he didn't score a touchdown, which he had been doing every week. But of course, that's because they happen to face a team, which you probably know is the last undefeated team in the league, the Philadelphia Eagles, looking like maybe the best team in the NFL. Game script definitely worked against them. I mean, look, he didn't get anything done because he only carried the ball 8 times, okay? So they kind of had to abandon the run, and that's a good defense. So James Robinson now gets to face the Houston Texans. I think the game script will be a lot better, and so they'll be able to establish the run. Houston just so happens to have the worst run defense in the NFL. They've given up 564 rushing yards in just 4 games. So I feel pretty confident that Robinson can get the job done. And we know that Travis Etienne is really not a factor. We're going to see a lot of Robinson. We're going to see him get the ball early, often, and be really productive. So in this case, I feel Robinson not just a must start, but I think he's going to have his best game of the season. All right, Chris, who else do you think is going to boom in Week 5?
Well, you talk about James Robinson being a nice surprise, and he has been, but what about Ramondre Stevenson? He's also been a nice surprise. Got a lot of hype in camp, didn't really deliver early in the season, but we've seen him start to turn it on. Looked great last week, and I expect him to look even better this week because it's the Lions. And you talked about the Houston run defense. They're the worst, but the Lions are right there, neck and neck, competing with Houston to be the worst run defense. And what did we see last week? Rashad Penny, 2 huge touchdown runs against this defense. Also for Stevenson, that really helps him this week, not just a great matchup, but look at the situation in New England. Will it be Brian Hoyer? Will it be Zappy? Will it be some quarterback off the streets? It doesn't matter. They can't throw the ball. They're not even going to try to throw the ball unless they absolutely have to throw the ball. It's going to be Damian Harris and Stevenson pounding the rock all game long. And look, Harris probably also going to have a good game, but most people are starting him. Stevenson kind of still a guy that people aren't sure about. And I want to let you know, you can be sure about Ramondre Stevenson this week in this matchup. There is more than enough here for both Damian Harris and Ramondre Stevenson. Plus, Stevenson, the guy slightly more used in the passing game, which helps his upside a bit more. I think he has tremendous touchdown upside. He's been ripping off big runs. He looks great. He looks explosive. If you got Stevenson and you're a little iffy about starting him, don't worry about it this week. He's going to have a big week.
Yeah, those timeshares can be frustrating because you never know which guy to trust in which week. I think Stevenson and Harris both could be top 20 running backs this week, so definitely on board there. Speaking of timeshares, the Green Bay Packers, look, you got Aaron Jones, who's looked like the better back lately, getting some big chunk plays, and then you have A.J. Dillon, who's actually getting more touches. So I think that this week, you could probably start them both safely, but I'm going to pick Dillon as my boom. Like, even though Jones is coming off that better game last week, and Dillon kind of hasn't really done a lot, this game, I think, favors Dillon for a couple of reasons. So first of all, going against the Giants, again, game script, going to be pretty good. The Giants, I mean, they have Saquon Barkley. That's it. They don't even have a quarterback at this point. There's no wide receivers. Name 2 receivers on their team that are actually playing these days. Okay, there is very little offense to speak of. I don't think there'll be a challenge there. The Packers want to run the ball. They'll be able to run the ball. And I think that favors Dillon because he will get more touches. And the Giants, look, they're not the worst defense in the world. It's not like Houston, Detroit we've talked about where they just get steamrolled. But they are much better of a pass defense than a run defense. Not going to go so far as to say they're a reverse funnel. It might get to that point. They're actually a top 10 pass defense statistically over the first 4 games. And they're a bottom 5 run defense. Dillon, I think, is going to benefit from that. So I feel like great touchdown upside. He could get chunks of yardage in this game. So I like Jones, but I actually like Dillon just a little bit more. All right, let's go one more boom each at running back. Hit me up.
You know, it's been an interesting Clyde Edwards-Helaire journey for me this year. I was penciling him. I was telling a lot of people, pegging him as a potential breakout running back this year. And then it happened. He broke out. And what did I do? I said, trade Clyde Edwards-Helaire. Trade him, because he's not getting enough usage. 7 carries, 8 carries. You know, splitting the goal line work with McKinnon, with Pacheco, not catching a ton of passes. Trade Clyde Edwards-Helaire. Then he played the Bucs, and I said, you cannot play Clyde Edwards-Helaire against the Bucs. There is no way you can start him. In fact, I benched him in every league I had him in. And I regretted it because he torched the Bucs, not just by scoring touchdowns. He looked great on the ground. 19 carries, almost 100 yards against the Buccaneers defense. I'm all in on Clyde Edwards-Helaire now. That's it. I've seen everything I need to see. If he can do that against the Bucs, I certainly trust him in almost any matchup, and I definitely trust him this week against the Raiders, who, for some reason, this defense that we thought was much improved is not much improved. They are terrible. Can't stop anybody. They give up chunk plays, chunk yards, and that's what we see with Clyde Edwards-Helaire. He doesn't need 15, 20 carries because he's picking up chunk yards and chunk gains because no one's worried about stopping Clyde Edwards-Helaire. They're trying to stop Patrick Mahomes, and that helps the run game because they're playing those 2 high safeties, those soft zones, and that gives Clyde Edwards-Helaire, lots of open running spaces before he even gets contacted. So for me, from here on out, Clyde Edwards-Helaire, pretty much a guy you have to start every week, but this week against the Raiders, he should continue to smash. Start him with confidence.
Yeah, I can't take any credit whatsoever as far as Clyde Edwards-Helaire saying the starter sit because I'll admit, I was still skeptical. I said I'll never buy into him. I've got to buy into him now that it's too late. And I don't have him anywhere, but yeah, Clyde Edwards-Helaire, you've got to start him this week for sure. And that leads me to Dameon Pierce. I will go ahead and admit, this is a guy that I wasn't crazy about, during the offseason. I saw the path. Look, I get the talent and all that, but I was a little skeptical about the Texans' offense in general. And then even when I bought into him as a potential lead back in that offense, I wasn't crazy about the draft price, right? People were going a little too high on him. But you know what? I guess I was wrong because he has asserted himself as the only running back that even is touching the ball there in Houston now. And he's been really good. Okay, this is a guy who is averaging 5.2 yards per carry. And he's coming off his career best game so far, 131 yards last week. Well, now he gets the Jags. So I already talked about the flip side of that matchup. I love James Robinson. I also love Pierce. This is going to be a battle of the running backs. I mean, the Jaguars, again, not terrible on defense, but they're pretty bad against the run so far. And this is a matchup where I feel like Pierce can feast again, right? The Texans have smartly realized that he is the key to their offense. So, look, Pierce, you've got to fully buy in at this point. He is a workhorse back. He can catch the ball. We haven't even seen him really reach his ceiling there yet. But once they start realizing that they could pass the ball to him, he'll get even higher in terms of value for PPR leagues. So love Pierce this week, and I will admit, should have drafted him in more teams. All right, now you know which running backs we love for week 5. We're also going to give you our wide receiver boom picks. Check that out, plus all our start sit advice at every position for every game. Our week 5 playlist right here, and keep it going. Check out all our advice to help you set those winning lineups.